I'm just moving the screen. You gotta grab the hand icon near the tools, and you can drag the picture around.
Yeah, or you can hold the space bar. Anyway, so yeah,
Gotcha.
now that we're set up, again, like if you want to participate in this, come in here, claim a spot. Try to keep your drawings pretty small. We're going to be doing a set of we're going to do a set of 20 of 10 2-minute poses, basically. So keep enough space on your page to draw about 10 poses. So started now. Okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes 30 seconds.
20 minutes and 30 seconds. And we're starting now.
Alrighty, I'll just put on some stream beats. Maybe we can get another page open up so I can have the like a bigger drawing window open up. Let me see here. Yeah, I'll have this one open up over here. Then I can zoom out a bit, maybe. Hard to see everyone on that size, but it should be good. All right. So how's everyone doing?
Doing good.
Mm-hmm. Friday night figure drawing.
Yeah. Had a bunch of last minute work pushed on us today, but we got it done.
Oh, what was the work?
We were gonna be put on a boat tomorrow, but that got pushed to the right. So now we're leaving on ship Monday, and then we'll be gone for a week.
Hmm. What's the job?
Yeah. Marine. I'm a cook. There's a bunch of military stuff.
Yeah, that's rough. Wonder if there's I hope there's a way to hide this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. I'm not going to be using the sequence panel today, but the beta for that, I gave that a try recently. So this is kind of like open practice right now, just kind of get your hand moving and warmed up. I'm keeping things deliberately gestural right now. I think I might dip into a little bit of silhouette study or something if I can too. But I kind of want to keep things focused on like the line of action and so on. And then I'm going to start like integrating some of the depth cues we're going to be practicing with tonight. Some of these. I'm going to maybe do a little bit more figure invention here as I'm starting to get warmed up. Yeah, our area of focus tonight is going to be like shorthand depth cues, stuff like floor grids, floor shadows, overlapping limbs, fake kind of vanishing point lines over the form. Oh, let's do a different pose.
Oh, that's a good.
Wait, where's John Cena?
You can't see him. Right now I'm just mainly focused on getting my hand and my eye warmed up. I got quite a bit of good practice in the last few days. So I'm really feeling some momentum going. Like as some of you already know, I'm going to be taking a TV storyboarding class, starting not next Monday, but the Monday after. You see, am I unmuted in Discord? Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm also in Discord. If you wanna like interact with me in real time, then you can jump on the Discord. Otherwise, Twitch is just fine. And I do read and respond to the Twitch chat too.
Are you doing one of the classes that Ethan Becker posted?
What, me?
Storyboarding class, or is it something different?
Oh no. I didn't find. I was kept in the dark about that, along with everyone else. Otherwise I would have jumped on some of that stuff before it filled up.
Yeah, I wish.
Oh wow, that can help me to practice fight descents.
I mean, it's cool that they're doing it and stuff, but I mean, what I'm enrolling in is what I'm enrolling in is like the kind of I'm enrolling in like basically the kind of stuff that they're teaching to at a different place, so I'm not too worried about that, and I'm going to be learning from some people that are just as good as those dudes. I wish I'd known about it sooner than I could have grabbed a class slot, but because those filled up so fast when they announced them.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ethan Becker Discord's out to how many members now? So it's not really surprising.
Yeah.
True that, but at least I was thinking a day. No, sir.
Much like the way Comic-Con tickets just disappear instantly, so does Ethan Becker's classes.
Honestly.
It's no big deal. Anyway, I'm going to actually be taking a class at the Concept Design Academy. That's actually the place that Ethan first started taking classes when he... Whoops, did I accidentally get white color? Yeah, I did. Okay. That's the place that Ethan first started learning. Took his first classes after he was like self-taught for a while. I'm going to be taking a TV storyboarding class with somebody who actually did work on Kipo and the Wonder Beasts too, who's now a supervising director at Warner Brothers on the upcoming Gremlins show, which I'm really interested in. So that seems like it's going to be really crazy.
They're making a show, I thought it was a movie coming out.
No, it's a series. It's gonna be an animated TV series. I have no idea what the.
I'll watch it after midnight.
Yeah, I have no idea what the show's style is gonna be like, but I think it's probably gonna be kind of like fantasy action comedy and stuff. So it's gonna have a little. My guess is it's probably gonna have a little bit of the taste of the style of a live action film, and probably a slight anime bend to it, while like having like the kind of like some wild sort of Warner Brothers cartoon aspects to it.
Talking same classic Gremlins from the 80s, right?
Yeah, Gremlins.
Okay. I just want to double check.
Mhm. I'm warming up my posing shorthand and stuff right now. I'm going to be dipping between a mix of doing figure invention and riffing off the pose and stuff. Trying to strategize about what I want to say and what I'm trying to get out of tonight. Like what I want to say with the pose and stuff, and what I'm trying to kind of push myself to do. In case Tingle was a little confused about which Discord this is going to be in, this is not, today's class is not in Ethan Becker's Discord, it's in my personal Discord. Here's the Discord link real quick. But tomorrow's storyboarding class is tomorrow's storyboarding class is going to be meeting at 2:30 p.m. in middle of the day, and we're actually going to be doing more drawing drills kind of in this vein. For that, I'll be doing critique and stuff, but I'm going to have people focused on basically like doing more kind of story poses and stuff, and kind of leading people in doing more pose invention and utilizing some of the mechanics of like gesture drawing and like composition and stuff that we've been kind of going over the last few weeks, because I kind of want to get people more having fun with that stuff. For me, like these classes are glorified like group study sessions, so I'm basically like trying to do like prep and warm up. It's like almost like self-teaching warm up and stuff between now and when I start my story. Between now and when I start the storyboarding class that I'm taking in real life. And when I'm taking that storyboarding class, like I'm not gonna do a plagiarism on what the instructor's teaching us or anything like that. But I'm gonna be like gearing the classes and the study sessions I do in here towards like building on the stuff that I'm learning in that class. So I'll be able to give bits of insights and stuff. Like I'm not gonna be as good as obviously the person that I'm paying to enroll in the classes of, but I'm gonna I'm gonna do what I've always done with these Twitch classes, which is basically learn by teaching and going over stuff with people together here, so I can learn it better, and so that we can all try to self-teach and give each other feedback and stuff. Like I started doing this in the first place because I wanted to like sharpen my skills, so I could open up new possibilities for myself in the animation industry, and so that I could open my third eye of being able to get down ideas that I have for stories and characters and stuff better. So I could develop my own personal ideas a lot more effectively. Anyway, you see I'm kind of deviating like from these poses, but not really, because I'm like looking at the pose and I'm thinking about like a muscular figure, and I'm thinking about like the limbs of that guy that I'm looking at right now. Even though I'm not drawing that particular pose, still kind of referencing it a little bit to like make my own thing. If you feel comfortable with doing that, I do encourage people to do that. I'm doing it mainly for the warm-up right now, because that's kind of helping me not get locked into copying the model as much.
There are times where I really wish this program had a navigator built into it.
Navigator?
Yeah, you know, like the sub window that actually shows
Yeah.
you where you actually are on screen.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think if there is something like that in the program. And the closest thing to that is you could just always open up another browser window, I guess, if you have another monitor to put it in. And then zoom it out.
But would that affect the positioning of where I am? Because that's usually what I use the navigator for. It's just to quickly reposition myself.
Well, no, because you're drawing in one window, and in the other window you just have visibility. That's what's happening right now on this. If you look on the Twitch. In fact, you could look at the Twitch and you'd see a navigator window, at least of the top half of the page. Basically. I'm feeling pretty good. Today, like, remember earlier this week on Wednesday, I mentioned that I feel like Monday and Tuesday kind of threw my rhythm off a bit. Well, I'm feeling it again. Like, the struggle on Wednesday started to like get me back in good shape, and then I felt really, really good actually. Both yesterday and for this morning when I was doing drawing drill warm-ups and other things. And I think I'm gonna try to maintain that. Like I had some lessons learned from the experimental class that we did that kind of, it was neat to do that, but I think having a stronger plan to get more value out of a session would be more effective. So I'm gonna be careful to not kill the momentum of that. And part of that is going to be why we're going to be doing more pose drawing tomorrow, in addition to like the storyboarding critique of homework and stuff. I want to like push people in the direction of telling a story and creating compositions with posing their figures out in action sequences and other things, action sequences and gags and story beats and so on. But I want to make sure that people get, myself included, get plenty of drawing and sketching mileage during my classes. So the momentum keeps maintaining and building. Like I'd like to get the blood pumping really healthily for every one of my classes. Because I think that like just like making sure that the rhythm doesn't get cut off, and keeping it up would probably be the best course. Next week, I'm thinking we'll probably do some hands and torso studies, torso anatomy studies stuff too, sometime during the week. I think it's about time to deploy a little bit of that in the mix. There's specifically for the hands stuff, I want to kind of rekindle. I'm getting really sloppy on my hands because I've been slacking off, I'm sad to say, on the daily hand stuff. A lot of you have been amazingly diligent about keeping up the daily hands drawing practice thing. So I'm going to maybe try to prescribe some kind of daily hand drills next week.
Just do what I do, just put on one piece and just pause in random frames.
Yeah, I mean like you can use animation as you can decide on what kind of different strategy you're going to be doing for practicing hands that day. You can either be referencing existing cartoons or comics or whatever, or you can be referencing photos or your own hand. I heard it isn't too good for artists to be zooming a lot digitally. Is that true? It depends what you're trying to do. In my case, like the zooming in and out that I'm doing, I'm just doing it to navigate the page, pretty much. I only have so much space to work in. I'm trying to give myself enough space so that I can move my arm instead of my wrist when I do these lines and stuff. So I kind of have to zoom in a bit for that. Guys, getting a little weird. Okay, Google, how much? Oh yeah, that was the last post. All right, let's just pause it there.
As a matter of fact, that 20-minute and 30-second timer is
Okay,
up.
Google, shut up. It's this. Okay, Google, set timer for 7 minutes.
7 minutes, and that's starting now.
Moving your arm, what does that mean? That means draw from your shoulder. That means don't put pressure on your wrist and or your elbow. Try to draw with your shoulder. You basically like have a you shouldn't press down hard with your pencil. You should generally have like a light touch with your drawing tool, whether you're drawing digitally or digitally or traditionally. And you should be using your shoulder as the main driving control of your drawing hand, your drawing arm. Let's take a look at what people are doing up here on the collab screen. It's looking pretty.
By the way,
neat.
RhythmBot isn't in the Discord right now.
I know.
Oh.
I'm just playing on Spotify. I'm playing Spotify right now on. I probably could put on. I should actually put the stream beats on RhythmBot for the people in the Discord. I'll probably do that in a little bit. All right, so looks pretty good. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this was an experiment with this grid that I threw in here. Do you guys think this is enough space to draw in? Seems to work out all right for like these kind of quick sketches and stuff. Yeah, we can probably keep going on it. I think this is pretty fun. Well, maybe just I kind of like how it feels here, and I like that I'm drawing in the same space as everyone else. Like kind of we're in a figure drawing class together. I could hop around to people's stuff and do draw overs and so on. Oh wow, why is there's 2 instances of me and I can't access the normal panels here. It's really weird. Better make sure I don't close that.
2 windows open, right? That's
yeah, I do.
Why.
It's a little odd.
So one of your instances is probably superseding the other right now.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's not a big deal. I can create a new layer, and if I need to do a draw over on somebody. Weird, I'm the admin, so I should be able to access these, shouldn't I? Yeah, we got 2 more slots down here if anyone wants to join in the drawing collab. The link is in my Discord Magma Studio links section.
Has anyone found a good zoom size that to just actually get all the figures in without struggling too hard?
Yeah, I kind of feel feel that. Well, it depends on like how big your drawing space is, really. But
well, I meant specifically for Magma Studio, and like in this instance.
Well, for me, like roughly about this distance that I was working at seemed to work okay for me. But I'm working on like a 22-inch Cintiq, and I'm only using half the drawing space. But like this ratio on the screen worked out pretty well for me. Yeah, I don't know if we'll do this today. Maybe I'll try to see if I can, but I wanted to try like drawing some more driders and like adapting them to the figure. The thing is like this kind of thing is actually going to be one of the subjects that we're going to be covering, not this next week, but I think like 2 weeks later. We're going to be focusing on this kind of stuff. Extrapolation of poses onto extrapolation of poses. One second here. Oh yeah, I better actually make sure that I... Oops, give me a second. I better actually make sure that my work is saved. Uh-oh. Oh, cool. The menu isn't open. The menu won't open up now on Magma Studio. That's kind of fucked. Just gonna have to save a manual screenshot now. Yeah, what the fuck happened to the everything here? Like, where's the call out bar for the menu and shit in this instance of Magma that I'm in?
Did you hit like a tab or something? Maybe that dismissed
Maybe.
it.
Yeah. I'll give that a shot in a sec, but I'm gonna make sure I screenshot this first. Yep, that was it.
Haha, I'm a genius.
Yeah.
Also, FYI, you can actually hit F11 and it'll put it into a full screen view.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't want to do that for this though, because we have the drawing space here for the figure poses. But yeah, there's some handouts that I uploaded last time I was here. They're not like the world's best handouts. Some of them, they're kind of thrown together of like some of the subjects we're going to be covering. But I just wanted to give people a general heading of the stuff we're practicing on. So here, I'm going to re-upload them to chat real quick. For them, so we'll have them handy for the next set. First off, here's some handouts from last week on silhouettes. So that'll give people an idea of where we came from to now. This one's on okay, Google, stop. This one's on a bunch of like principles of like basic principles of like figure drawing, like straights against curves, using a uniform line of action, shorthands for heads and feet, stuff like that, like the waterfall and center line of balance, so on. Here's the handouts from this week right here on like strategies for trying to find depth cues. Oh, I put them in Magma Studio links. Fuck. I'll delete those later, but I'm going to re-upload them into Drawing Corner chat. Sorry about that. Upload a bonus page of these gestures right here for people to reference. Gesture silhouettes. And then there's these three on the depth cues stuff. See if there's anything else. Oh, good lord. Somebody did some fan art of a really terrible anime drawing right there. It's on my desktop. See if there's anything else. Well, you can have some Goku legs. Yeah. But anyway, Anyway, yeah, these are some handouts real quick. We talked about them more in depth on Wednesday, but these are like a bunch of strategies for achieving depth, like darkening in a limb, for a limb that's going further back, like shrinking limbs that are going away from space, away from you in space, using floor grids or shadows or this kind of like jump rope to correlate the limbs together and stuff for like kind of like a floor grid pattern. You can darken like undersides of the figure to give them like more kind of a sense of gravity and weight, or like add like underside shadows a little bit, and make them pop a little bit more. You can push the pose and add more depth. You can add like kind of a ghosted vanishing point effect where you have like kind of a loose idea of a vanishing point. You can do stuff like make one eye slightly smaller that's going away from us in a 3/4 view for a head tilt, to create an illusion of depth. Here's examples of 3 different approaches to take to doing figure quick sketch. One was like the Disney animator shorthand approach, which is kind of this flower sack body with very simple kind of wire limbs, and a head that shows directional tilt. There's the tornado, which is like a concentric circle, sort of spiral construction for understanding depth and what direction the forms are turning. Sections of the body basically become kind of like tubes. And it's a good way to sort of if you have a lot of nervous energy you're trying to get out, or if you're trying to wrap your head around depth cues, this is a good exercise. The tune, or the tune approach, this is not the best version of that. A good example of that would be, let's see, Pixar gesture drawing. Here we go. Here's a video I found that actually shows off this sort of thing really, really well. This is from a gesture drawing class at a quick sketch gesture drawing class at Pixar that somebody was taking. And this shows off basically the tune version of what I'm talking about here. Like there's depth cues built into this figure and stuff. Like you can see like the ground shadow. He could do a floor grid too potentially for this as well. But you can see like there's kind of like that. There's there's a further back foot back there that's smaller than the one that's slightly larger here. There's like a sense of like directional tilt. There's a little bit of a sense of like stuff going towards the vanishing point in some of these drawings. There's also an overall sense of like this builds on some of the other stuff we've been practicing. There's a good line of action here, good silhouette here, and pretty good silhouette here. And you can think of the pose here as being an overall shape, an overall singular unit shape, but it's broken up into a cartoon. You can see as he's getting more in gear with and getting more warmed up, he starts playing with pushing things and getting more bold with it and so on. But you can see he used the placement of the feet. That one's kind of smaller, further back stuff to kind of like establish the depth cues of this figure. The tilt of the waist and versus the tilt of the shoulders. And in this one, he really pushed the depth. It's much smaller leg back there, bigger leg towards us. And these are enough to be perfect. You'll be playing. The idea is to just play with depth cues. Like it's not going to be accurate perspective. You're just supposed to kind of play with. You're supposed to like play with these little tools of shorthand. So we're going to be getting into another set very shortly, another 20-minute set. But if you want a good example of what you should be aiming to do, I'll be linking that in the Twitch chat and in the Drawing Corner chat if you want to refer to that video, because I think that's an excellent example of what we're trying to aim for. Here's another one of the handouts right here. You're going to be seeing me actually using this guy quite a bit tonight too. This is a storyboard artist, also animator, animator shorthand called the Starman. This is a guy that you'll see come up an awful lot, or versions of him come up an awful lot in storyboard and rough animation. So let's see. Let's go to Sakugaburo real quick, and I'll show you a good example of that in action. One of the best examples that I've seen so far of that in action is from the storyboard art for the Scissor 7 series. Let me see if I can. There's 2 storyboard examples. Both of these are good examples, but this whole thing is full of examples of like the Starman basically in action. The Starman is like you omit details of the figure, so you just concentrate on like a very kind of simple pose, a pose that almost looks like a 5-pointed star of a figure or person. Sometimes you might add in features, but the idea is that you want to get like quick vitality and quick energy, and even like in that little tiny guy right here, he's still obeying like the rules of perspective that are going on here. Like this tiny little shorthand dude that has a lot of energy in him.
7?
Yes, Scissor 7.
Oh my god, I love that show.
Yeah, and if you want,
I've actually.
yeah. But there's some Sakugaburo. Sadly, they don't have more than 2 examples of the storyboard animatics on Sakugaburo, but you can also see how the final animation looks in the show. If you want to take a look at that to see like where planning like this builds into creating cool, more elaborate shots like this. But they use stuff like this to plan stuff like that, basically, and they have to like get the idea out quickly. So there's a lot of energy in these boards, and these boards are almost kind of like rough animation. But they use these rules of shorthand that we're kind of playing with today. Like you shouldn't be afraid to just jump right in and be bold with what you're doing. Like you're trying to communicate an idea with your posing. And you're going to be embedding like quick, rough, loose rules of perspective and stuff that still obeys rules of like kind of basic ideas of rules of like directional tilt. You can see like this arm is like kind of falling. This arm and everything, like his body is tilted towards like the vanishing point of the backdrop here. This hand and arm is bigger because it's closer towards us. The hand and arm is smaller because it's further away from us. Like look for all kinds of depth cues like that. I want to like open people's third eye to thinking about even very simple drawings in terms of like 3D perspective. See, check that out. That's a lovely example of a Starman right there. So's this right here. Look at that. And it's just about capturing the energy and the essence of the pose and the idea. And the animators take this and they play off of it, and they riff on it in order to create the animation and plan out their key poses and stuff. But like this is like the thrust of the fun energy. Like the storyboard artists, a really fluent storyboard artist like this basically gets to play, and they don't have to worry about making like perfect drawings. They worry about making drawings that communicate an idea effectively and that embed like enough information that can be extrapolated on to like extrapolate the perspective of the shot, the composition of the shot, the pacing of it, and the general kind of posing energy that goes into it. So yeah, so here's a bunch of like practice in a similar vein. Like there's just like a Starman and stuff. But here's like some other practice that I did like from last week in a similar vein of like mixing and matching my approaches to the figure and stuff. Like you're not necessarily tied down to one particular thing, but I would recommend like picking one thing to really focus on that you want to get better at this evening. I'm going to be like mainly kind of using like these puppets kind of in this vein tonight, but I'll be dipping in between doing that and more kind of thought out character posing. So we're going to get started on another figure set. It's going to be another set of 2s for 10 poses. I'm going to recommend I'm going to actually jump into my drawing app here for this set, but I'll leave the the Magna Studio page open on the upper right here. Let me actually zoom in a bit so we get more view here on what people are doing. But let's see, do we have, I think every slot is claimed. Yeah, that's good. I could open up another instance if we need it, if more people want to participate in that. But yeah, so we're going to get started. Okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes, 30 seconds.
20 minutes and 30 seconds. And we're starting now.
And I meant to get the stream beat started, but I'm just going to jump right in with this for now. Like stream beats in the Discord isn't a huge deal. So like I said, I'm going to be messing with a mixture of pose invention and kind of and like copying practicing from the poses that I'm seeing. Like right now I'm kind of like looking at the pose that's on screen right now. I'm thinking, I'm gonna maybe, instead of trying to copy the pose, I'm gonna maybe try to like change the angle that the pose is viewed at or something. Just to kind of challenge myself a little bit. And it doesn't have to be perfect, I'm just playing with the mechanics of it and stuff. Like I'm not trying to go for, if I try to go for perfection, it's just gonna lock it up. Like as you can see, like in the the Pixar example I posted, he's just like playing loosely with the mechanics and stuff. He's free to like kind of modify the pose as he wants to, and try to come up with something that says something in the pose about the character or the action that's being taken.
Guys, I have a question. I see the animation part and I start practice with Krita, but I don't know who, another free application to use to practice
Free drawing apps,
animation.
OpenTunes.
OpenTunes, and also Blender.
Blender.
Yeah, Blender's got a 2D drawing template for 2D animation.
You also have Rough Animator too.
Yeah, Rough Animator is not free, I don't think. Is it?
Toonboom isn't free, but if you're a student, you can get a significant discount on it for a subscription of like $9 a month, which I'd say is really good actually. If you want to practice animation.
I'm gonna try challenging myself this evening, and I'm gonna try to like kind of riff on the poses while using some of those depth cues we've been practicing this week, and I'm gonna try to like change the camera angle of the pose, or modify the poses, and repose the pose as I see fit. I think that's, and if I'm feeling up to it, I might like do that thing I was showing off, like with the Drider stuff earlier, of like interpreting the pose into like a wildly inhuman or different character like that. I think that's going to be what I focus on this evening.
I'm really excited.
And the reason why I want to do that is because I kind of feel like if I get locked into like trying to copy the exact pose too much, I'll kind of get locked into like one way of seeing the pose a little bit too much. Whereas like I'm trying to invigorate my ability to like create stuff and like riff on things. But if I see something that I really want to go for, where I do want to just use the angle that's there, I'll go for it. So have you guys seen the new WandaVision episode? Things are definitely heating up.
I haven't. I want to watch it tonight, probably.
Yeah, I haven't yet either.
I haven't
Sure they
watched
good.
it yet.
There's definitely things are like starting to get
Crazy.
yeah.
Heard about it. Haven't gotten to watch it yet. Heard it's
Yeah.
possible.
I don't know if I'll screen it after the class, but yeah, we'll see. So this week, among other things, I actually screened the film Frank and Ollie, which is a documentary film about two amazing golden age Disney animators on that's on Disney Plus. So if you have a Disney Plus account, everyone here, if you have not seen the film yet, you absolutely need to watch the film Frank and Ollie. Strongly. I'm gonna make that required viewing for anyone here who has a Disney Plus account. I might screen it again, like sometime this week or the weekend. As you can see, I had a little bit of fun with this one, and I gave this character a crocodile mouth for some reason. See what I can do with this dude. I really like that guy's face. I think I'm going to concentrate on it for this right now. He's got kind of like he looks like a kind of like a facial type that you'd see like of a character from like a French graphic novel to me.
Mm-hmm.
Something about his face really caricatures well for that. I'd say his body also caricatures well for that too. Dude's a walking anatomy class.
By the way, is anyone experiencing like network lag with Magma Studio, or is that just because I'm getting deprioritized because I'm using a non-account?
Experiencing lag.
Network lag? Well, you shouldn't. I mean, like what you draw is like client from how it feels to me. Like it feels like when you draw stuff in the app, it's a client. It handles stuff client side, so there shouldn't be any lag. If there's lag happening, it might be because like the whatever you're using to draw on might not have enough system resources for the giant 4K image that we're on. Like, have you tried using it before when we were on like in the 1080p and you didn't have any lag?
I had lag on the 1080p thing, but here's the thing: I draw at 1200 DPI on a 4K canvas, like in Magma and Clip Studio, and I've never had an issue. So either it's something network related on my end, or there's some weird deprioritization going on because I'm not using like a paid account.
Probably nothing to do with that. Might have something to do. You were talking about like the XP pen stuff was giving you issues.
I mean, it's possible that might be part of the case. I mean, because there's times where it's doing it, and there's times where it's literally not. So that's why I'm thinking something to do with the network.
So Magma Studio is from the makers of Agio. I would also try to see, and Magma I think is based on the same kind of coding that Agio is. So I would try seeing if Agio gives you the same issues as well. And see if there's other online drawing apps that give you similar kinds of problems or whatever. Yeah, my goal this evening is not really to copy, but to kind of riff and cartoon things where I can and stuff. Pay special close attention to depth cues. And in one of my handout sheets, a rule that we've mentioned quite frequently here is CSI, which is C curve, S curve, and straight. So you notice on this picture right here, I'm still doing this like really loosely and sketchy, but I'm using a mix of C curves, S curves, and straights. For every part of this that I'm drawing, basically. So let's see, how can I add more depth cues? More depth cues on like the side plane of that leg that's coming towards us, for example. Like, let's make little notes, stuff. Sometimes you don't really have to draw. Sometimes it's a good idea to like make actual notes of stuff you're kind of observing in a drawing. You eventually want to like kind of use like whatever shorthand you're using as the note taking, but sometimes making like a linear kind of notes about an image really helps with that. So in this case, this guy got that. That made me think a little bit about how that projects a shadow on a 3D surface of the ground. Let's do like kind of a little fake shadow down there. It's kind of following with the floor, something like a floor grid. So this is what you call a figure lay-in on the right here. This is I believe a Watts Atelier drawing, but this one I threw some stuff like this into the mix to give people some like different kinds of approaches to figure drawing to sort of vibe with. Like you can see how they like simplify certain rhythms and angles of things. An image. You don't have to like copy every single one in there, you can just vibe with a little bit of it. I'm using it as a quick opportunity to kind of do a super quick and dirty kind of quick sketch copy of the picture. Not a whole lot of depth cues in the drawing, but there are some, like the corner of the rib cage, for example, versus the hips and the shoulders, the tilt of the shoulders and stuff. They're there. This guy right here, he's running across what's a very evident floor grid down there. So let's see, how can I play with this guy? I want to have some fun with this guy without necessarily like copying what I'm seeing. Just want to play off the rhythms here with adding my own kind of depth cues and stuff. So, something like this, maybe. Then I shrink that leg that's going behind him a little bit. Shrink the foot. Make sure that this foot coming more towards us is a bit bigger. Maybe bring that down more. You can use like a cube for his palm. Like I kind of see the cube shape that I can use as a simplified object for his hand there. I can correlate that over here. Another cube over there, kind of at a side plane angle. Speaking of palm cubes, I'm gonna maybe play with that a little bit on this. Just gonna use this as an opportunity to do a very quick hand study. And that's all I wanted to get out of that pose. Gonna warm up some starmen right now. So I want to start using them a bit more for some of the next few poses. Okay, Google, how much time left on timer?
T-minus 2 minutes and 17 seconds.
Nice. So let's see what I can do to play with this dude. It's a great this is a sorry about the Shutterstock watermark stuff, but this pose has a pretty nice sense of an upward thrust to the whole thing here that I kind of like. Just gonna make a note of that with some arrows, actually. Like how bunched up his like shoulders are for this. Like his business suit, the fabric of the business suit kind of bunching up. Kind of really push up his shoulders and stuff. We get a nice sense of like the torso twist that's going on there because we can kind of track the shoulders. Like the buttocks, we can actually see like the back end of the buttocks a little bit, and then his like upper body's kind of twisting a little bit more towards us. So there's this very nice kind of twisty effect going on with him. Like here, I'm gonna actually go back in with some red and make a note of that. far side there. Torso twisting more towards us. Okay, Google, stop. Let's pause it on this guy here. If you want to keep drawing him. Okay, Google, set timer for 7 minutes.
7 minutes, and we're starting now.
It's going to be on a little break right now. I'm going to take a peek at what people are doing. That was our second set, so that second set is almost kind of a warm-up set itself. But I hope people are taking peeks at the handouts or some ideas to play with. But the best thing to look at for how you want to be approaching this is that video I linked, which shows off like a kind of a good rhythm, how to approach these, like the kind of depth cues you'd embed in the drawing, whether it be like shadows on the ground or floor grids or little like co-relating thing. Like I'm a big fan of using this thing that I like to call the jump rope. Or like, let's say for example you got a figure like this. He's got like a handout like this. And there's another handout over there. You can kind of like correlate the hands across from each other with this kind of invisible rhythm line that's kind of moving through 3D space. They kind of give you something to play one hand off each other. Because even though these are on independent limbs, they are connected to the same body, they are occupying the same 3D space. So whatever what limb does is going to be correlated to what the other limb is doing. Let me see if I can give a good example of that on the floor plane, for example. Like, get like this. Use a jump rope for the front of the feet or the back of the feet to correlate them. Like that one's kind of going off on that angle, that one's kind of going off on that angle. But they're correlated to each other, and use these kind of like quick sketch lines to sort of establish the 3D space stuff. And for integrating freehand perspective into your drawing, just kind of decide generally where a suggestion of where you think the vanishing point is. Like so these lines are generally kind of going towards some kind of vanishing point over there. The horizon line would probably be somewhere up here-ish or something. But these are all going over to some invisible vanishing point off over here somewhere. Also, as you can see, I was when I did this, like, I'm starting to get like in tune with these kind of shorthand tricks and stuff. So as you can see, like I instinctively made this hand bigger, this hand smaller, and this foot bigger, this foot smaller, because it's going back in space. And this is shorthand information. Like I could take this really loose thumbnail sketch and I could work this up into a character pose or something based with the information that's here. Don't forget to stretch, y'all. Yes, that's very important. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. I'm drawing space and stretch. And I think that's a good idea for folks here. Get up and walk around, shake yourself out. Let's want the blood flowing for this. You want to get some energy going. What we might do this evening is towards the end, we might spend a little bit more time and do like some 10-minute poses where we really try to kind of like get some kind of interesting cartoon drawing out of the poses. We did that last Wednesday. It was really fun. So maybe we'll do that for like the very last 20 minutes that at the end of the session. Anyway, it is 6:45. We're gonna be going at this till 8:30. So another 2 hours, say. But take it at your own pace. Like, if you're starting to feel kind of really burned on something, maybe take a step back, take a look at what other people are drawing, like in the Magma Studio. In fact, let's take a peek at that right now. See what other people are up to here. There we go. Yeah, playing with the depth cues. Trying to play with the skeleton, with maybe a skeleton puppet that might help you track the figure easier. I might do some draw over demos of this stuff later. Mainly just wanted to use this as a tool to get people having fun with practicing this stuff together, as if we're in a physical drawing class together.
Do we have to use this, like, watch your stream or your Twitch stream to see the same references as you do, or can we just use our own?
Well, you can use your own if you want to. I've got my own like gesture drawing app right here. But again, I'm doing a lot of figure invention this evening. So I'm like I'm either riffing on the poses that I see, or I'm just like kind of inventing poses freely. Playing with the mechanics of what we're doing, of what we're trying to learn today. I have a few ideas for things I want to screen in the Discord. I definitely want to screen Frank and Ollie again, and there's a bunch of Pixar documentary things I want to screen too. Okay, Google, stop. There's also a bunch of drawing instruction stuff I want to screen later, but we'll talk about that later in the actual Discord. But some of the things I'm interested in screening, the Gremlins movies. I've been wanting to do that for a while, even before I found out about the background of the drawing instructor's class that I'm taking. Gremlins 1 is just a really fun movie with some heart, with some nice heart to it. Gremlins 2 is a movie that satirizes the crass commercialism of Hollywood, and is a highly subversive, brilliant, genius ahead of its time film that I think that people are going to get a huge kick out of when I screen it. But it's best seen if you've seen Gremlins 1, because then you can kind of like understand where it's coming from a little bit, and maybe it might be a good idea to kind of like, because like when Gremlins came out, there was a big like product cash-in blitz with Gremlins products fucking everywhere, and like imitation Gremlins stuff and other things like that. There's like a before and after in like small creature films with Gremlins. But the second Gremlins movie, like literally the film director Joe Dante said, like, I'm not directing Gremlins 2 unless you let me do whatever I want. And the studio's like, okay. And they let him do whatever he wanted. And he wound up making a really fucking good film that just absolutely like satirizes the Hollywood merchandising machine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to screening that for sure. Both the movies are really loads of fun.
Yeah, they are.
But the second one actually has something to say, which kind of went over a lot of audiences' heads when it first came out. But it resonates a lot more now, for sure. Anyway, so we're gonna get started another set here. Okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes. 30 seconds.
20 minutes, and we're starting now.
So we'll do another set of 2-minute poses. I think 2 minutes is a good rhythm to go off of because it gives for most of this session, because I like that it's giving people enough time to kind of riff with the pose too, if they want to try some pose invention or something, or if they want to like take a crack at doing an analysis of the pose. It's really not like this. Or if they want to try doing some invention or try multiple takes on trying to get some of the depth cues in. So this is a kind of a quick invented out of my head pose, kind of playing with my visual library of doing lots of reclining poses in figure drawing. Just kind of using that to sort of establish myself there. But now this guy here, I've drawn him before, but I think this guy is a great example of a pose that you can do a really simple line of action on, for sure. Like that. A simple abstract line of action. And then if you're trying to build depth cues into that, but keep it like simple and cartoony, you can just do something like, here we go. There's this hand that's further back there. It's tracking with like the ground here. You can see the so that jump rope effect that I'm talking about. That kind of mimics a form. When you see it on the ground, it kind of mimics what you're seeing there with that ground shadow, for example. That ground shadow and how it's like laid out on the ground has its own kind of 3D Z depth to it and stuff. This guy right here is actually kind of making a jump rope with his arms, in fact. You can also see like the front of his face is also kind of a 3D mask. It's got a down tilt towards us where we can see the top of his head. But remember, with these quick sketches, you're just riffing, you're not really going for perfection. You're using this as an opportunity to play with the mechanics of this stuff and take it at your own pace. And if you feel like you want to really challenge yourself on something, you go for it. This guy, we can really see the top of his shoulders, so I'm gonna like square that off a bit as like a note. His body is like severely foreshortened and stuff. Like his hips are like right down here, like under his chin or so. I think one potential way to exaggerate this would be like to really like shrink his hands back here. And emphasize the shoulders and the head or something. Just making a note I'm making like a thumbnail note of that to see how it might look in thumbnail form. Oh yeah, this famous photo. This is a good example. Well, first off, there's a clear sense of perspective in this pose. Especially because of the ground plane down there. But this is a good example of a pose as a singular unit. Or a pair of poses, in this case, that are acting as a single unit. Remember when you're doing a floor grid, as the horizontal lines get further away from you, they or the lines on the grid get further away from you, they get closer together. I'm going to darken in some areas to differentiate the two poses a little bit, but I wanted to just get something rough and loose for this. His hat there would be a good example of using an ellipse as a depth cue also. Yeah. This guy, yeah, we'll stick with this guy. Actually, let's see if I can riff on some things real quick. Maybe get some Starman invention, actually. Extrapolate his attitude onto like a Starman that's flipped on the other side, maybe. That's what I want to try. There we go. So we got a depth cue going up here, depth cue here, depth cue here, because of like the way the hands are placed in the pockets. You can kind of see that happening a little bit on him too. And you get the depth cue of the feet. His feet are kind of placed in different spots, because like he's kind of, I think his back leg is kind of bent, actually. I think his back leg is bent and his front leg's straight, so it's kind of like it's got kind of a hip tilt or something going on underneath there that's hard to see. So his legs are probably, I'm guessing, are doing something like this. Plenty of examples of depth cues to go for here. Here's an opportunity to play, I think, with the depth cue of overlapping shapes. In this case, you can see the hair is kind of overlapping. I think some of it's actually landed on the high jump pole there, or whatever it's called. She's got a great line of action through her body right here. Like if you want to do straights against curves, or a CSI, C curve, S curve, straight shape breakdown of what's happening here, your work is cut out for you with a pose like this. So opportunities for depth cues to play with. The side plane of the bottom of the shoes. They are at slightly different angles from each other, so like this one's going this way, this one's going this way. The square of the buttocks right here. Square of the hips. Get like the top of the torso, that's kind of a cube shape here, a little bit. And of course her ponytail kind of overlapping on the high jump bar. I'm not gonna work too much more into that picture. Just wanted to make a few notes. This is a pretty wild pose right here. Let's see if I can get some gesture going on this one. Just play with this one intuitively, I think, would be the best option. Maybe because the fabric is so important to this one, I'm just gonna like use that as kind of like a energy to play with. You get this foot sticking out here. So it's really a lovely pose. And you actually use the ground shadow with a little indication of some grid lines down there to kind of help anchor it for me a little. I'm just gonna like use the what's cool about like fabric stuff like this is like you can literally see the fabric is kind of like making manifest the forces that you should invisibly kind of, or if you want to like play with adding them in gesture, like these are the kind of forces you should kind of like feel and see in your head when you look at a pose, when you look at a dynamic pose. Like this is like that thing I was talking about with the jump rope for connecting and correlating limbs. There's stuff like this that's happening in a pose invisibly all the time, similar to this the way that this fabric is going. That is like because there's air in the space around a pose, obviously. But there's like kinetic energy forces that are acting on a pose. And fabric, in that case, is something that can basically help track the physically track and visually track the kinetic energy of a pose. You get a similar effect if you could have like a visual spectrometer and see like the air currents and stuff that are going over a pose. If you're in the vacuum of space, you probably wouldn't see that, but the forces of inertia and gravity and so on would still, or well, depending on where you are in space, but if you're on the moon, there is going to be gravity, for example. But the forces of inertia and so on that affect a pose stuff are still present. And those are like these invisible forces that you have in the back of your head when you're doing these, or you can physically track them yourself, like kind of create energy similar to that fabric. So I thought this was a foot. It actually was not. There's another foot down here. But nevertheless, this pose wound up working anyway. So other strategies to add depth cues. Let's say you have like some parallel lines together. You can square them off like that, or you can add ellipses that are wrapping over the form at different angles. I've actually got some drawovers of like some dead cells screen grabs that I did, where I was kind of playing with exactly that sort of thing that I'll show during the next break. Okay, Google, how much time left on timer?
T-minus 5 minutes and 25 seconds.
Cool. So we got a couple more poses here for the set for another like 5 or 7 minute break. So like I said, tomorrow, I'm going to do critique and feedback and stuff of like people's work, but tomorrow we're going to be focused on like playing with stuff like this, but steering it in a more of a making story panels direction, and also like playing with character posing and character storytelling. Like I want to get people pushed in the direction of coming up with little kind of scenes or doodles or ideas for like story beats or story ideas or like little personality sketches of the characters that they're drawing. And some examples of that sort of thing is on those Drider drawings I did yesterday. Like I want to get people to start, well, using these drawing tools, but also like playing freely with using them as a way to throw out ideas and to play with character personality as they develop their stories for themselves and stuff. So tomorrow will be a mix of drawing drills and playing invention. We'll probably be doing some more time poses in this vein too. With the idea, like I said, of maintaining momentum and continuity with what we've been doing. So we don't stretch ourselves too thin with what we're doing in these classes. And in my case, whatever I do is going to be modified by what I'm learning in the storyboard class. And I'll be shaping that. I'll be letting that help shape what we cover in these. Like I'm gonna do stuff that I know will help me with the stuff with the problems I'm trying to solve in the classes, in the class that I'm taking. But it's going to be complementary. Like I want to do stuff that's like a good art weightlift or an art sprint or something that will help me solve those drawing problems for the homework I'm going to do in the class. Also, I'm going to make sure I clear with the instructor, like, what can I tell people about what I'm learning in his class? Because I don't want to, like, I don't want to, like, unethically kind of, like, sign up for a class and then just, like, tell everyone the whole curriculum of what the instructor's doing without their consent, Like Kevin Chen, who also teaches at the same place I'm signing up for. He cleared, for example, Costa from our Discord to talk about like some of the proportional stuff and share his handout on like body proportions. But didn't give him permission to use like a lot of the other handouts that he had. Like those ones you have to sign up for Kevin Chen's class to get access to. I actually do want to sign up for his class because that one came strongly recommended to me by Costa and a lot of other folks in the Discord. So I'm planning on that. Costa told me not to sign up for it unless I can go there physically, because like apparently that's like being able to do the drawing class physically there with Kevin Chen is a big deal. So I maybe want to save my money for when the COVID outbreak subsides enough to safely start for them to safely start opening their classes again. I definitely don't want to do it unless I'm vaccinated and stuff. Bruce Lee's hella fun to draw, just in general. All the principles that you put into your figure drawing are the same principles that a martial artist like him, martial artist and actor, for that matter, puts into the physical stuff he does. Okay, Google, stop. There's like lots of tension and release, and like they'll float like a butterfly, sting like a bee thing. over like there's parts that are more kind of parts that are more like flowy and stuff, and then there's parts that are like sharper and harder or more like kind of impactful. So you have like a flowy thing like this, flows, and then it rises and it crashes and slams and
Like
becomes
water.
yeah, be like water. Exactly. I think wasn't float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Wasn't that Muhammad Ali?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Muhammad Ali. So be like him too. I think I've got some Muhammad Ali poses in some of my mixes here. I've drawn Muhammad Ali before several times. And he's a good example of that sort of thing. Like the human body, in order to like stay loose and dexterous, well, in order to stay dexterous and stuff, especially like during a fight, or keep flexible and adapt to situations, we have a wonderful organic body that lets us adapt to a myriad of different problems or dangers that we face. If we stay mentally loose and flexible, like we can meet and adapt our complex nervous systems and our muscle systems to a huge number of challenges that face us, because we are organic mammals with very highly developed brains and nervous systems and musculatures. We are made of organic, hard and soft forms, and the actions that our bodies perform are not unlike that. So when we're creating an illusion of force and motion and physicality on paper, we should stay as physically loose and as adaptable as a martial artist, and also martial artist or a sports player, and in both the way that we move when we draw and in how we adapt, how we create the illusion of those forms on the paper. Okay, Google, set timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, starting now.
My biggest issue with figure drawing is getting everything proportional to scale, says Izanagi21 in Twitch chat. Yeah, proportional stuff. There's no shortcut to that. If you want to start wrapping your head around proportions, you need to do proportion drills. You need to get like a guide template that shows you like different kinds of figure proportions, usually measuring everything by head. There's different systems. There's like 8.5 head. Like in reality, no one is really 8 heads high or 8.5 heads or whatever. It's just like a system of using heads as a unit of measurement, and proportions. General like proportions of the body you can track. Like generally the pit of the crotch. The pit of the crotch to the top of the head is the same length as the pit of the crotch to the bottom of the feet. Not always, but that's like one example of like a generic proportion to kind of keep in mind with figures. And over time, you'll kind of like, you know how like we use freehand perspective? Over time, you'll kind of develop a kind of a more intuitive sense of proportion. And also on figure quick sketch, you give yourself a little bit more, you generally have a little bit more leeway to kind of not be as proportionally accurate, but you look for little opportunities to kind of like play with proportion and stuff, or kind of get a little bit of like proportion tracking practice in here and there. But I mean, like, there's no shortcut to practicing proportions. You just gotta like drill yourself relentlessly at them. So this is like a guesstimation right here. Like usually like the bottom of the rib cage is like from another unit of bottom of the sternum or something. Actually, it's like usually where the next head length is. This is not like a perfect proportional system I'm using right here, but I'm using like an 8. I'm using like a roughly around an 8 heads high system here for this kind of really super quick sketchy dude that I'm doing. So this is roughly about a head or a head and a half in length. This is about a head and a half in length or something for forearm. And it's not perfect because I'm not really focused on practicing proportions today. But you can have like this kind of stuff in the back of your head to sort of help guide you and influence you. And then there's going to be times when you would want to like double down on practicing proportions. We've been mostly doing like gesture drawing, and paying too much attention to proportions will kind of stiffen you up a bit for doing like the gesture drawing that we're trying to do. So I'm not as concerned with getting accurate proportions than I would be if I was trying to do like a proportion drill class or something. So you can have a lot more freedom with this type of gesture drawing that we're doing today. But yeah, I would strongly recommend as a side thing to find a proportion chart of some kind. Andrew Loomis's proportion chart or some other really good suitable figure proportion chart, and to start relentlessly practicing and copying it, memorize it, and then you can use it as a frame of reference for your figures. You can even do perspective drills on like measured box forms of the figure or something that are in proportion. That might be something we get into in the future too, by the way. Like box forms of the figure in perspective, where we kind of treat the human body almost like kind of a mecha. That's also why I think that paying attention to mecha designs in a lot of anime stuff is actually a good idea for okay, Google, stop. Understanding figures in perspective, because they are made up of like literal box forms in a lot of cases. Okay, Google, stop. So we're gonna do another 20-minute set. Start with this guy right here. I don't think this is a quick sketch. It might be, but this is I think this is a quick sketch, but it's a figure lay-in from Watts Atelier. But this like shows off like a very nicely proportioned figure, I would say. This kind of segues from what I was talking about. Let's kind of meditate on this guy for a bit. I'm not going to necessarily like worry about too much about copying the exact rhythms of the body, but here I'm going to set the timer 20 minutes. Okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes, 30 seconds.
20 minutes and 30 seconds. Starting now.
So I'm going to get like a few things down from this, like just a few things. Wanted to give people a little bit of a taste of some of these longer pose lay-in drawings of like more formalized approaches to figure drawing, just to throw into the mix here. You can see those kind of simplified forms of the feet and so on. This might give you some ideas of stuff to play with when you're doing your figure drawing this evening. You can see how they started with very kind of simple straight lines and straights and curved rhythm lines and stuff, and then they added some more kind of shape information to them with like the rib cage and other things like that. And there is this kind of like unifying sense of the pose. You can see them like kind of tracking certain shapes kind of unify the whole thing. See on this, they have they make use of some depth cues, like the directional change of the side plane and the front plane, like the rib cage and the hips and so on. Anyway, so it was a little taste of that guy. And we got this pose here, which is actually not looking too far off the mark from the subject matter, in that one Pixar gesture drawing guy, the video that I was showing earlier. So I'm gonna play with this just a little bit. Spending more time on constructing the head for this one. So this is kind of a vignette. I'm gonna use that head to kind of play off the figure a bit. So we get this kind of plane there. Plane up there for the shoulders. Track some plane changes on those knuckles a little bit, just a little bit. We've moved on to the next pose. This is a really exaggerated pose right here. Gonna stay a little bit longer on this guy right here to add a little bit of darkening on the underside to differentiate some forms a bit. This gal right here, you can see you can really like simplify her pose into kind of a cuneiform thing. You can definitely see like the depth cues here, because this is a 3D figure, like a sculpture. This is a 3D like actual like sculpture model stuff that is occupying actual 3D space. But it still obeys like all the principles of like gesture drawing and figure drawing. And it definitely has the depth cues. I mean, look at that. This huge, huge blade that's like part of this little composition that this photographer took, making the blade come really, really close to the camera. You can see like there's a little bit of a depth cue there with like the top plane of this kind of cubed shape for the scythe there. See like there's like a side plane on her back there. Seeing kind of an upshot of her head looking down at us. You see like the back of her hand, the back plane of her hand a bit. Underside of her arm. And we're just making quick notes here. Like, this is not about getting a perfect drawing down. We're just making like little shorthand notes and observations about the pose. It's right here. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to do some kind of box form study on these figures. It's a box form for the figure on the right. Get kind of a gestural sweep going for the pose here. But you can see with these 3D figures here, these 3D sculpture figures here, there's like it's still being driven by like a line of action and a gesture to it. I believe this is a Green Lantern and Sinestro sculpture. That's what we're looking at here. It's a very Western superhero posing. I'm using this as an opportunity to play with some box forms for depth cues here. Like the box form of the pelvis, where we kind of have a little bit of a down tilt there. And I've started to dip a little bit too much into copying the figures. I'm gonna maybe start deviating back into pose invention. But I am enjoying like playing with the depth cues that are on screen, like cubing off the front of that cue that's coming towards us, for example. Wrapping some forms over that thigh that's facing more towards us. This one is really facing towards us, so these are like almost ellipses going back in here. So ellipses going under here, because this is, you can even see it like on the bottom of the bottom cuff of the pants there. What direction the ellipses are for that leg. Remember, the goal of this is not to make pretty drawings, it's to understand what it is you're looking at, basically, essentially making notes about the 3D forms that you're seeing here. So take the pressure off yourself of trying to make a good drawing. What you're going for here is understanding. So this one I see as a good opportunity to correlate certain things in 3D space. So I'm going to go down the form like this. This seems kind of weirdly counterintuitive, but I have confidence this is going to work. Where I kind of have these tracking to sort of a pseudo vanishing point right here. And what those are kind of like little landmark points I made for myself, around which I make the gesture. And I had faith that that would work. But this is not unlike what you might do where you start, when you're like doing a figure in perspective, you start with a cube or like tracking points that sort of show you where the perspective is, and then you create the gesture influenced by perspective. So like if you're planning out a scene, or in storyboarding or animation, that you're going to be animating in perspective or drawing, storyboarding in perspective, you might start with some kind of tool like this that will help you set you up to have the gesture be influenced by the perspective. So at its core, animation is just gesture drawing and perspective. Same with storyboarding, of course. Her body's a tube. Her thighs are tubes that are moving and turning and changing forms in space. I'm using aspects of the tornado from the handouts to kind of wrap those lines in there. And it can be rough and loose, and I can add a few darkened lines here and there before I go on my outro to the next pose. Let's maybe try a little bit of what I did on that last pose here. Plot some landmark points for certain things on the body. Like the knees right here. I'm using that as a landmark point. I'm using this as a tracking point right here. There's like the body's turning and twisting in space, but it is also being influenced by perspective, so I'm kind of keeping that in the back of my head as I'm doing this. That arm is getting smaller back there. That head can be cubed off, or you can use like a front plane kind of mask right here. Tilting up with like the underside of the chin. We're seeing the underside of that rib cage there. That arm has ellipses that we're looking at the underside of. This arm is going back into space, away from us. So the ellipses are facing away from us. This leg is, ellipses are facing more towards us. This leg down here, its ellipses are kind of like this. They're facing down a little bit more because the leg is kind of tilted back a bit more. Now that I have kind of good tracking to that pose, I'm going to go back in and sort of define some of the lines a little bit more before I move on to the next pose. Whoops. This guy here, I'm going to start with a cube to sort of establish the head. Maybe just add a little bit of kind of a chin there, center line, the head. I'm going to try a little bit more of that technique of looking for those landmarks. Just little dots here that I'm kind of correlating to each other. And they sort of give me a visual GPS triangulation system. Almost like connect the dots a little bit, but not really. More like a way to kind of visually gauge where on the page you are with the pose. And I'm free to modify them or go beyond them or stuff as I see fit as I go through the drawing. But they give me something to kind of like work around, is the idea. So here we go. In the 30 seconds we got left, I'm gonna like add a little bit of kind of tornado effect right there for the like directional change of that thigh and that calf. It's very lovely. There's a lot of bend happening right there. That's something that could be severely exaggerated if you're adding more cartoon exaggeration to this. So I'm going to darken in that because I think it's really important for me to make a note of. So a lot of times, like your study sheets of doing like quick sketch pushes, sometimes they'll look like nicely designed, nicely laid out sheets of pretty drawings. Like if you're in a good rhythm with something that kind of feels like that. Other times, they'll look like a note worksheet, like you're taking mechanical notes of like how poses work and so on, because you're trying to learn from doing this. Like, you shouldn't be you doing this to show off. You should be doing this to understand stuff. And when you make notes of these poses, you can go back and refer to them and like things that you observed in them. Things that you might not have been able to necessarily capture in the like quick drawing sketch you did, but things you noticed that you made some kind of a note of, or at least tried to get some impression of. Even if you didn't pull off a good if you didn't pull off a good execution of that thing is still in the back of your head to turn over in your head and wrestle with. Maybe try again later. Either go back to the image of the same pose or like try to take another crack at it with using some tools of figure drawing on your own time. So I'm gonna try doing something like a Starman on this guy, I think. I like the attitude that I feel from like how his legs correlate to each other. That back leg contrasting to the leg that's coming more towards us. I also like the directional change of the back of his hand a bit. That's something I might want to exaggerate. This guy could be potentially pushed into being kind of like a JoJo-ish pose. It's not very extreme here, but this is like not off the mark for something that could be pushed to be something like that, something crazy like that. I'm not really going for pushing it right now, but I'm making some notes of what I'm seeing here. Making some personal notes here about what direction I think stuff is going in. Okay, Google, how much time left on timer?
16 seconds left.
Oh, nice. I'll just pause it on this time. But yeah, if you're looking for a depth cue on that figure on the left there, back of his shirt, back of the buttocks there. Okay, Google, stop. You can see, like, those forms are going towards some kind of a vanishing point down there. Kind of like... at like the top of his shoulders there. And then you can correlate his head to his arm, kind of like that. a nice curve to his overall flow of the body. These legs are occupying 3D space. They're not just like a flat. They're not like a flat gesture thing. Likewise, like his arm, we can see the underside of his arm. It's kind of cube here underneath the bicep. See, the backs of his heels are squares, occupying 3D space and at different angles, but they are correlated to each other. See the top of his foot there. I think because of how his foot's twisted, you can see like a little bit of the sole of his foot there. It's hard to say. It's also doing kind of gestural wise. He's doing more kind of a kick motion forward with this. Something that I didn't quite capture. But I think he's kind of leading. Let's see here. Well, he's going this way, I think, based on like what his arms doing there. I think. No. I think he's doing a front flip, actually. But
it looks like the other guy put his foot.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, yeah, he's doing a backflip. You're right. He's doing a backflip from this guy. Yeah, that's what happened here. You're absolutely right. Yeah, my first instinct was right. Like that sleeve right there. That's the direction that he's moving in. This threw me off a little bit because we see a little bit of the cuff right there. But yeah, he's doing a backflip. So, question is, which foot did he do the flip on? I think it would be this foot. The foot that's more forward. I think that's the foot that he did the flip on. What do you guys think? We could probably like reverse engineer what happened a little bit. Like this guy was down doing this. I want to see like the pose for this. He's probably like posed in a way where he could like get power from his legs to lift the guy off the ground because he'd be using the power of his thighs, the muscles of his thighs, instead of just his arms to lift the guy up.
I think the leg that's higher up.
What's that?
The leg that's higher up was the leg that,
that launched.
That was used to propel him upward.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking exactly. Because I'm like because I've done this before actually. I've done this move before. I haven't done this in years, but yeah, I've done this move before myself in real life, and like my instinct is telling me that like that leg is in terms of like what I would do when I like picture myself doing this. Like I picture him doing something like he's like kind of anticipating it. He's coming down, kind of anticipating it, putting his foot in this guy's hands here. He's got kind of like one arm up here. He's sort of like hunching over a bit, anticipating like his legs going down, getting ready to like push off of this guy who's going to come up and stretch. This guy stretches out. He's like using he's using the power of his thighs to help lift this dude off. This dude is going up like this. The force of the action is going to be traveling that way because it's going to be turning over stuff. But yeah, like he's got hands around there. I don't have enough room to draw all that, but you get the idea. This is a really fun action. Like I like reverse engineering action like this. Because you need to like invent poses and picture in your head what characters are going to do next. So so it's good that we had this as a detour, because this is exactly the kind of problem solving that we're going to be having to use these gesture drawing tools for animation and storyboarding. So this has been a good opportunity to detour into that. Okay, Google, set timer for 5 minutes. Okay, Google, set.
5 minutes.
Yeah, good.
No problem. It's canceled.
Okay, Google, set timer for 5 minutes. So my current
5 minutes. Starting now.
So my current plan right now is we'll do one more 20-minute set, and then we'll do another 10-minute set at the end. And we'll either do like a character drawing, or we might do something like this, where we try to analyze and invent an action or something based on one of the reference images, one or two of the reference images here. How do you guys feel about that? Because essentially, like, what we just did here is a practical application of why we're doing this gesture drawing stuff. Like, we use it to solve problems and how stuff moves, and moves through space and occupies space dynamically for animation and for storyboarding, and also, you know, for illustration and comic posing, of course, too. But like, I'm pushing people in the direction of thinking fourth dimensionally with this stuff, how this stuff moves through space, is one of those aspects I definitely want to go more into in these sessions, because that's what this stuff is working towards. Like, it isn't just about the single drawing; it's about how like this stuff kind of all hooks together. Yeah, now I'm remembering like the Tonico Pantoja stuff that I showed. Tonico Pantoja animation. Here we go. He's got some good examples of like the figure drawing shorthand on his channel, and we've gone over some of this stuff several times here. Here we go. There's the full figure in animation. There's a few other things here, but yeah, his channel is pretty fantastic for this stuff. Drawing fast. Oh, here, I can go back here. There's several different videos on this kind of stuff where he talks about how to use it. Use this stuff for shorthand, but like essentially, like what we're doing here is like this. Like the stuff that looks all rough and crude. The reason why it's rough and crude is so we can concentrate on the stuff. Like if you look at this, like he's embedded the information that I'm talking about in this like really rough animation right here. Like you can see like well, he's got a really rough, loose perspective grid down there for the floor grid. The figure, you can see the tilt of the hips there, the tilt of the shoulders. You can see like the plane that the hands and the knees and the feet are occupying. This is even this rough, loose sketch. You can infer all that information in this figure. He has like he actually took this and he actually showed how you tie this down I don't know if he did it in this video, but in one of his other videos he took this animation and developed it further, and a couple of the other shots that he did in this, where he did like this thing in animation called tie down phase, where you do another pass at this and you try to like define the character structure more, and you try to get a little bit more on model. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. This is like one of the different figure techniques, shorthand techniques that he goes over in this video. I just strongly recommend checking out this video. It's called Approaching in Full Figure in Animation and Finding Your Shorthand Style. He's also got a much longer video on this subject too on this channel. But yeah, this guy right here, this is the guy that I'm talking about from the handouts today. Let me bring up the handout real quick. It's this guy on the right here. This guy is actually the Glenn Villepeu approach to gesture drawing. And then a method that he didn't show here, I think, in this was the the full character shorthand approach, which is like this. That's the direction that we're going to kind of try to steer towards in future sessions here, because you'll be able to embed the storytelling in one go, like the information about the. You see that? You see what he did there? He used like a kind of a box form shape, a bendy box form shape for the torso there. He's using kind of like loose gestural, straights against curves stuff for the limbs. You can see that definitely there. Like there's a big straight for the actual pole right there, and like the curves on top there for the. Okay, Google, stop. Curves on top there. But yeah, like this is like the direction that we're gonna be pushing more in towards in the coming weeks. With what we're doing. But today is mainly about looking for those depth cues of like correlating the figure in 3D space and thinking about how you can strategizing about how you can you can have the gesture feel like it's occupying 3D space. So it's not just a flat image. It's something that's moving through 3D space, and also, as we just discussed, this stuff is something you're going to have to start thinking fourth dimensionally about. Where is that limb going? What is that character doing? What's that action? What's the action? And here's a good pose for us to start with here. I'm going to actually not time this pose. I'm going to leave this on pause for our next set. We're going to spend a little bit extra time on this one. And we'll do some slower action analysis. So I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. We will do time poses on this, but for this pose, at least, we're going to really slow down. So, okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes, 30 seconds.
20 minutes and 30 seconds. Starting now.
So we have a good amount of time to really like pay attention to this thing and what's happening here. So we don't have to rush in, get scribbles down for the sake of making scribbles. Let's think about what we're doing here. Let's get some gesture line here. I'm using like 3 gesture lines for like the bend of the torso. Right here. Thinking about how that outer gesture line interlinks with that leg down here. I'm thinking 3-dimensionally here, like the bottom plane of that foot that's on the edge of the skateboard there. Thinking about how this leg now correlates 3-dimensionally, like the knee especially, to the other knee that's foreshortened in space. Both these thighs are kind of coming towards us, but the one on the screen left is coming towards us even more severely. So I'm just thinking about that stuff. I'm also thinking about, like, you can see the side plane of the butt right there. The side plane of the hips. And then you can totally see the tilt of the hips there. So it's a cube shape in there. And of course, he's kind of stretched out. So his body posture is severely kind of pushed and exaggerated. This arm, because it's closer to us, is larger. So the other arm going away from us is smaller. And this correlates down to this. You can almost think of like some kind of like he's a flying squirrel or something in terms of how you correlate the energy of his balance and his pose. Like there's these invisible forces of gravity and balance and inertia that are radiating all around him. And you want to kind of wrap your head around picturing some of those. And it's an intuitive thing, and there's strategies to kind of tap into it and visualize it. So I'm using these kind of curvy forms that are sort of wrapping around where I think the arms are a bit to kind of give me that kind of a little bit of like the forearm and the bicep right there. Same thing over here. I love how his thumb kind of turns away in space there, so I'm making a little note of that right there. Versus his fingers. Putting his thumb in over here, because I'm thinking about his thumbs. This kid is really stretched out. I think that I could have even stretched this out even more from what I initially got down. Like, this side of his body is really, really pushed. And you can see, like, if you wanted to exaggerate this, you can make this more like a straight right angle here for the bend of his body. His hair is kind of wrapping over his head like a bell. Like a bell over the top of his head. And the skateboard down there becomes kind of a way to track a particular plane in 3D. So I got that, and that's going back towards a vanishing point somewhere. This is, and then you can correlate it to the other plane over here of the front-ish part of the skateboard. The wheels also become a way to kind of track that vanishing point a bit. So this stuff that I'm talking about right here, this is actually stuff that like sports photographers of skaters and stuff actually have to keep in mind when they're making compositions for this stuff too. Sports photography of skateboarders and surfers and stuff are really hell fun to do action analysis from, especially because like there's a lot of them like in skateboard magazines and surf magazines and stuff, that even like parkour magazines and stuff that really they sometimes even go to showing you image sequences of the action, which is really fantastic. So this guy looks like he's going this way, and he's kind of like shifting his balance and like doing kind of like half pipe sort of thing. He's probably gonna, my guess is he's probably gonna curve his body and go over this way somewhere. Or I think he's grinding. He's grinding right here. He's grinding down the edge there. I think that's what's happening. What do you guys think? You got any judgment calls to make about what you think's happening? Some of you are probably skaters here, and you probably have better insight into what's happening than I do. It's like, what do you think is happening here? What do you think is happening? What do you think happened before this action, and what do you think is happening after it? We can maybe make a couple notes of that of ideas about that before we move on. If you're a little shy and about saying anything about it in voice chat, feel free to type it in text in Discord or in voice. Oh, that reminds me, we need to check in on Magma Studio during the next break, I think. Ooh, that's nice. Some good gestures. Oh, those are nice silhouettes. I see you're practicing the silhouette stuff from last week, but you're also integrating a little bit of looking for those depth cues with like, you're using one of the stuff from the Tonico Pantoja simplified figures to kind of use as your like simplified model. This was one of the approaches that he had. So good call on that. You want to kind of go with whatever is like making the part of your brain highlight up the most. Whatever drawing tool is making you kind of vibe with what you're trying to break down and understand at your current stage, or how you're feeling that day or something. And if picking that particular model is giving you the results you're looking for, and go with it for sure. So I am curious, where do you think this is going three-dimensionally? He jumped maybe. But like I said, my best guess is that he's grinding on the edge of the pipe. Like, here's what I think is happening. Okay, so there's this kind of like really long sort of half pipe of like this kind of aqueduct thing or something. It's not really like a perfect curved surface. I think these are flat. I think it's like this. Basically looking at this. So here's that dude right here, standing like here. Our guy is grinding on the edge up here. Like that. So let's add like some isometric 3D view here. So this guy's going this way. He came up here, like he came up like here. I was grinding this way for a little ways, and then at some point he's gonna go back down. So like he came up here, he came up here and he kicked the back of the board up over there. He's kind of grinding on the edge there a little bit, and then he's gonna go back down. He might not actually be specifically grinding either. I think he is kicking the back of the board in. Part of what makes me think that is like this area right here is especially blurred. So that's like the area where the fastest motion is happening. I do like that dude back there. Before I move on, I'm going to do a quick gesture doodle of him. What's he holding? Is that a skateboard? I assumed it was a skateboard he's holding back there. But you can see even with him, there's like a little opportunities for depth cues in him, like his belt, for example. Well, like his belt, his knees correlating to each other. His feet, the ground plane on the ground. The upper part of his torso, his shoulders. Yeah, I assume that that's a skateboard he's holding right there. I think they're both skating. You can see like the plane direction of his face, his knees relating to each other. Anyway, I just make a little shorthand thing of him. So yeah, like there's a side plane of the butt right there, side plane of the thigh, front plane of the calf, so on. See, when you go into this with a kind of like a GPS approach, if like find like those look kind of like little GPS dots I was making, that's one strategy for you to find those points to like correlate to each other. But if you notice when I was doing this, I was like trying to correlate everything to itself. Like even with this, like I was thinking about the invisible kind of negative space that this whole area occupies. Stuff. I think that like there's definitely like a flow to the negative space in here too, like for sure. So sorry about that. We're taking a little bit extra time really analyzing what's going on here. So feel free to take another crack at this. Okay, Google, how much time left on timer?
There's 8 minutes and 13 seconds to go.
Cool. I'm gonna say we should maybe go ahead with maybe trying to invent some action poses using this guy. So I'm feeling pretty fun. I'm really feeling pretty good about drawing this dude. So I'm gonna try like draw some more skater poses using this dude, using like a quickie shorthand cartoon version of this guy. Just kind of riff on him. Kind of picturing in my head him going through different actions and different poses and stuff. Just sort of play freely with him. You just use like a quick gestural puppet to sort of like play with different poses. I'm going to use like a few cues of his outfit and his hair and stuff to kind of help me vibe with it. He's got those gloves. This guy would be fun to do a character design of, I think. I'm gonna maybe make it like an anticipation pose here, I think. Like him getting ready, him like if you've ever seen skaters skate, like you can see like sometimes when they're like preparing to do certain tough tricks, they get like you see them like kind of lowering, like crouching like a predator or tiger or something. So like as they're like headed towards where they're gonna pull off the trick stuff. This guy's kind of getting really low because he's planning on doing a big leap or something. Just really got his thighs forward. Just keeping it really loose and gestural. It's like playing with the general idea of the pose. I'm gonna try to maybe do like a standard sort of skater kind of kicking off the ground a little bit. Propel himself forward. Standard skater movement. But with like the physics of this dude that we've just drawn in mind. So he's putting weight on that leg. This leg is kind of scuffing off the ground as he's pushing himself on his board forward. This way with forward inertia. Going that way. He's got his arms out a little bit. He might be looking down at the board, or he might be looking ahead. You might be looking down at the board to like check his speed or something. Check his speed and like get an observation about how much speed he gained from doing that forward, like just like kind of intuitive sort of stuff a skater would do. They're trying to get like taking the visual information around them of what they're doing. So I'm going to be doing more like a casual pose of like, still got the inertia going that way. He's still riding the board, but this might be something that he does a little bit after doing that. Like he's headed towards the stunt. He's maybe thinking about what he's going to do. He's sort of a little bit more relaxed. Like he's just exerted himself on the board. So he's like kind of pacing himself a bit. His arms are kind of slack. It looks like kind of like a pro athlete, maybe like a tennis player or something that you might see like between rounds of taking shots. So he's like he's on the board to relax, let like kind of the blood and his legs sort of adjust out, take a moment to breathe. He might swing his arms a little bit. just kind of like casually relaxed. But then he's going to at some point he might taper off to relax and just like kind of he might kick up his board and like stand and relax, or take up a new position, or he might be moving towards something thinking that's what I'm gonna do, and then he springs into action, or he starts accelerating and getting ready to do something. His foot down there again, making contact with the ground. He's getting ready to push himself more. Also thinking like the contrast, like this pose that I was doing, like I'm thinking like in these terms, like of when he's coming up to kind of like get the momentum of the board, like he's gonna do like a kick flip on the board or something. His body's sort of coming up some. I'd have to actually look at like how a kickflip is done to see what he actually does with the board, what a skater actually does with the board with their feet in order to kickflip the board up. But like my instinct is like the overall thrust of their body. Probably I think what happens with the kickflip is that they kick on the back of the side of the board in a way that kind of makes kind of a leverage effect that flips the board over under their feet, and then they lift up one leg or both legs, or however high they leap up, they jump up in the air with the board flipping over in space. Like that. Again, I'd need to look at like how an actual kick flip is performed, but this is like my recollection, my instinctive recollection of it. Like I do have visual library from where I've observed skaters before to draw on, and experience from I never like tried to do really super crazy tricks, but I hang out with okay, Google, stop. Okay, Google, set timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, and that's starting now.
Actually, no. You know what? Let's just continue with this drawing, with like this study that we're doing for the rest of the session. Okay, Google, stop. So we'll just hang out on this. I'm not gonna go into a break or anything. We'll just hang out for like the next 15 or 20 minutes or so, just kind of meditating on this, because I think this was some good momentum. The very end of like thinking about this kind of action. So let's see. Is there any observations that people have been able to make about this guy, thinking about what other actions this guy could perform, like what other kind of moves you think you might put this guy through, or ideas, or are there any kind of like general observations, even from personal experience, if you're a skater yourself, or if you've hung out with people who skate, about like certain aspects of the physics involved with, and the thought process involved with skating that you might be able to offer some insight in, or observations on, or thoughts on? Anybody?
Robin?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, like, what happened? I just got back.
Oh. We're wrapping up tonight by meditating on thinking about different actions that like this, like a skaters can perform. Thinking about inventing actions, thinking fourth dimensionally about like this particular pose that's on screen right now, and about different ways to pose out this lanky figure stuff. And thinking about like the thought process and the physics behind skating. a little bit.
There's one thing that comes to mind is the twisting of the body when.
Oh yes, definitely. You can definitely track it in the clothes. Look at that.
Grind.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You can track it in the clothes on what this guy's doing right here too, a little bit.
Yeah, here too, yeah.
There's other better poses that do what you're talking about that I've definitely seen for sure. In fact, like it's good that this guy came up. I was actually thinking before the class, I think we should get a lot of skating poses together, because skaters are really particularly good to do studies from. So it's a nice happy accident that we ran across this pose here. I've practiced from skaters before, so like if you want to get a good sense of like momentum and physics and stuff, like skaters are fantastic for that. Especially you can go to like a skate park or COVID finishes being a pain in the ass that it is, then I would recommend going checking out a skate park and like doing like shorthand quick sketch of the skaters there. Do what you're doing here, and invent gestural poses. If the skaters are cool with it, you can even take video of some of them for reference and stuff. If you got friends that are skaters, or if you skate yourself, I mean, like, you literally just have like a piece of scientific equipment to do motion and inertia studies, basically.
Like I can see which direction this person is turning just from the weight position of this one photo.
Yeah.
He's coming towards the camera and falling backwards, hopefully.
The other cool thing is that like if you like, a lot of the same approach that we take to animation in our drawing is the same approach that a skater takes to how they handle skating. So I think that feeding off the same kind of energy they feed off of would be really helpful. Like if you've ever seen skaters like trying to get better at tricks at skate parks, that's the same thing that we're doing when we do these sessions. Like we're trying to like do kick flips over and over again until we get intuitive at them. We get a good sense of them. Stuff. It's the same sort of thinking. We're working on a mix of like calculating. We're working on a mix of like understanding and calculating the physics of what we're doing, and also thinking intuitively about it. Like a skater has to be aware of. The skater has to exercise his spatial awareness of his surroundings. He has to feel what the physics of. Okay, Google, stop. The physics of what. Okay, Google, stop. He has to understand his body and feel the forces of balance and inertia and gravity. Human beings are very complex bundles of nervous systems and energy and all kinds of like reading and tracking devices that let us feel and sense gravity and force of action as it acts on our frame and as we exert energy ourselves. We are very complex things, and we are wired to read intuitively and understand that stuff. And that same sort of that we have the power of an analytical brain that can analyze and understand and break down those things into those complicated things into formulas that we can measure, like perspective, like linear perspective, like proportion. But we also have an intuitive understanding of these things because we are living, breathing, organic, fleshy things that read and understand the world through our meat binoculars. So we, as we start to get more of an intuitive understanding of these things that we can measure, we can check ourselves. We can use those tools like perspective and proportion and things like that to sort of gauge what we're doing. As we get more of an intuitive sense of that stuff, we can get more kind of like a free-flowing sort of thing, and that's where the fun starts happening with art, like where there's invention within the illusion, playing with the illusion of what you're trying to create, the illusion of life and action on the paper, in animation or in drawing. That's what we're trying to tap into with gesture drawing, and that's why I say gesture drawing is more important to start with than structure drawing, because it is the fundamental root that drives the structure that you're trying to draw. It's for lack of a better term, the soul of whatever you're trying to capture. Like we have like a sense of that underlying sort of intuitive understanding of like how the body works and how physical forces acting on it work and stuff is something that other people that view your art, because other people are other human beings, see your art, they will be able to tap into and read and understand. Like you can put on paper the feeling of like what's going through the nervous system and the brain of a skater that's performing tricks, and make people sympathize with and understand that pose and feel the physicality of it. This photographer did a good idea of capturing that, because the photographer for this composition and this particular shot they chose understood which image to pick to blow up for like a magazine spread or the magazine editor, to emphasize those things that we would sympathize with. If you took this from like an angle that was like really hard to see and feel this stuff, you wouldn't get the same impression. But that's the idea. We are trying to trick our stupid mammal meat brains into vibing with the stuff. Like, these are lines on paper that we're making, that we're trying to capture the feeling of this stuff that goes through our nervous systems. When we perform actions and stuff, we do things. We move through the space around us. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little bit of animator zen. I hope that little rant gave some people some insight about how they should be thinking about this stuff. What do you guys think of that?
Definitely did give some insight.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much what I was taught in animation school, and I'm just trying to rekindle what I practiced in animation school but fell out of practice with when I got sick. And starting to feel it, like the old muscle memory of practicing this sort of stuff is coming back. That's why I wanted to refocus what we were doing. Well, tomorrow we're going to be doing more stuff kind of in this vein. I might even say, like, this is almost kind of like a model sheet for something we could do tomorrow potentially. Like, we might even use this image and some of the sketches we did tonight as something to do like a storyboard of. Like, you see these are almost like storyboard poses that you could use as like key poses. You just like you'd start thumbnailing like potential compositions of like, how would this character be occupying the 3D space or something? Like, would you be using the medium shot here? Would you be using a wide shot? Like, might there be a setup or something? Like, we see like an undershot right here with the sky plane back here of like the character that's overlooking like the place that he's going to skate on or something, you know, like 3D space down here. He's got his skateboard in one hand. He's going to go skate. He's going to go down and skate and stuff. His buddy with his board is already maybe over here or something, doing something on the other side of the. You could invent a scene based on like an image like this. You start thumbnailing ideas, making your own little shorthand before you make like your story panels that communicate the idea more clearly for other people. Yeah, this is why I wanted to refocus things in our classes, to like cut down on the overwhelming amount of information we're trying to take in. Like, in the past, I've tried to do like animation and storyboarding and animating. So, no, you could want a slow drip of all that stuff, and you want to really like pick a particular area to really focus. And I think we are building pretty good momentum on where we're focusing right now. So we'll just keep vibing with this. We'll do some more of this stuff tomorrow during tomorrow's class. Tomorrow's class, by the way, will be at 2:30, not 5:30. We may actually take some extra time tomorrow to kind of vibe and hang out and get more like free fun sketching in also. I'm keen to kind of like test drive some of the sequential stuff tomorrow in Magma Studio. If anyone who wants to try out the Magma Studio sequential stuff, go to my Magma Studio links in Discord. Posted these here by accident. This guy right here, he's a dev with Magma Studio. Yeah, if you can DM him or email him, and he'll add you to the beta for Magma Studio. The beta for Magma Studio that'll let you use sequential images. So like, let me bring up Magma Studio for me real quick. You see this? Because I'm in the beta, like I can access this and I can create new panels like here. So only I can see this right now. Like the other people that were in the file here don't get to see this. But I can do this, for example. Little shorthand dude there. And then next panel. Do him like crouching forward or something like this. I don't think there's anything like onion skinning in just yet, but that would be a feature I would love to see. Yeah, you see, like I can go between it. It's in beta right now, but you can use it for like potentially collaborating on storyboards. Unfortunately, you don't get to access this timeline. You only get to see this. So you actually see physically. This is neat. You actually see physically where everyone is in the timeline here. So that's handy. You can see what panel people are on. Would be interesting to see how they develop this potentially for animating. At the very least, it's good for storyboard posing. But yeah, let's take a look at what other people are doing here. RB Pants trying out some quick studies with floor planes, some fire puppets, some box forms, some more kind of gestural approaches with like kind of a box body there. Nice little smattering page there. Trying long lines, yeah. You can also maybe even zoom in and use like a really thin pen to get like small. You can get like you see how close I get zoomed in on these. Let me see if I can get on a layer that's not locked. There it is. Okay. You see, like even though it's kind of pixely, like it's enough for me to kind of work with. For like getting kind of gestural lines and stuff, and I can like even get like small simple figures and stuff like this. Another thing I suggest for the people here, start practicing stuff on your own a lot more. Like start gathering reference image libraries of your own. Like it's pretty easy to like go on Pinterest or something and like search for like athletes or martial artists or dynamic figure poses or dancers or anything. Search for like all kinds of varieties of different poses to do practice from. Sports photography is good stuff, especially like skaters we were talking about. Try to find also good artists to do copy study practice from. Like good artists and good draftsmen, like people who you won't pick up on bad habits from. You can. On that note, I'm slightly guilty. I'm worried about how many people here might pick up on some of my bad habits. So in order to cure that, start finding lots of really good artists. Like I don't know, Martin Day James is really good. Watts Atelier folks. I don't know. Alex Ross. There's a lot of good anime art. Katsushiro Tomo. I think the Berserk artist is pretty good. Yeah, he's pretty good. I forget the Berserk artist's name. But yeah. Start like finding a lot of good artists to practice from and do like copy studies and draw over studies from. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you the Kipo. No, not Kipo. The Dead Cells trailer studies that I did. Let me bring that up real quick. Where's Clip Studio? Oh, there it is. Okay. That was a good session. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, let's see here. Let me bring up this skater guy again, just for anyone who wants to still keep drawing him. Yeah, let's see here. There was a page I was doing yesterday and a little bit of today. Here it is. But yeah, I started with this right here. These like draw over studies of frames from Dead Cells. I would recommend checking out this particular trailer. This is for one of the DLC expansion trailers. This one in particular, I noticed had like really nice dimensional cues in their animation frames. Like you can really see like the floor plane and the backdrop and stuff, and you can see like the angle change, like on the planes of the forearm, for example. You can see like very clear line of action. And I made like notes of like, you know, look at it, like there's the side plane of like the simplified side plane of like the leg, for example, on the side of the hip. You start observing stuff like from artists better than you. You pick up little bits and pieces of stuff to get into your bloodstream by doing like studies like this. You can see like even though this guy is like even though the Dead Cell headless character is like, he's just an eyeball with flames around him, there's still volume kind of to the flames. There's still kind of like a sense of 3D volume to the flames a little bit. And there's still kind of like, you can still kind of infer, like I don't think that the artist necessarily might have even done like a little cross thing like that, but I did it for myself because I know the artist is kind of thinking a little bit in those terms about what direction this head is tilted and what the direction the ellipse would be going through that little sphere for the like the eyeball, floating eyeball head. You can see here, look, there's a side plane right here to the arm, for example. There's a cube right here for the palm. You can see like X-ray mode through there. There's like this kind of triangle shape for the underside of the palm. The little gap between the three major masses of the palm. You can see like this sort of curved form here for the foot. That gets into a little bit of taste of foot drawing right there. The plane of the bottom of the foot down there. You can see there's like a plane change actually involved with the shadow here a little bit. With the side of the calf. That ankle there sticking out, really kind of a emphasized dimensional shape right there. I kind of put more of a buttocks in here than there was in the original drawing when I did the draw over. This is kind of breaking down the structure a bit. Even this down here is like, I drew it a little bit two-dimensionally, but this is way more of a kind of a 3D shape with its own volume stuff. You'd see on this like torso here, there's like a view of the underside right here with the dark shadow of the underside of the torso, the rib cage sticking out like when you inhale your chest, and you can see like the top of your ribs. It's like the hips right here, the hip bones. You can see like bits of the pelvis, kind of pelvis anatomy in there. And that's the fun of doing like these kind of draw over studies of good art. Like you get to kind of play with breaking down these mechanics, and then it gets into your bloodstream to think about when you're doing your own study, when you're doing your own original drawings. So I do strongly recommend people doing stuff like this. Find good artists to study from. Try to develop a good eye for good artists to study from, so that you can pull good information from them. And if you want to do studies from this Dead Cells trailer, this one's a really good one to do. For sure. I'm glad that's, I think, was it Red Tea? I don't think Red Tea, oh yeah, Red Tea's here today. Were you who brought the Dead Cells stuff in? I think so.
Yeah, I suggested it. I just thought
it's good.
It's good.
You pick something good for me to vibe with, and it definitely helps.
Have you actually played Dead Cells?
Yes.
Yeah, my boyfriend has a game, but I feel like I get too nervous when
I would say that like for that kind of game, like here's what's really cool. So that game's game design, I would recommend checking out like the GDC lectures on that game's game design. Fucking Goku legs.
GDC?
The GDC stuff, the GDC lectures on the game design of Dead Cells. So Dead Cells was actually designed with favoring the player's action in mind, cheating the action to complete the action, to read the intent of the player and cheat the game, so that like you like hitboxes in games. Oftentimes when hitboxes are pixel perfect for like landing on a platform or for like making contact when you hit something, if it's off by like a pixel on the hitbox, it won't connect. Well, Dead Cells has a lot of systems that they play tested, that there are visible systems that run in the background that read player intention, so that even if you're off by like a pixel or something, the game like slightly cheats you to actually like make the connection. It reads what you're trying to do, and like there's a lot of stuff in times in Dead Cells where like if they didn't do that and you were off from catching onto a ledge by like a pixel, you wouldn't make it. But there's a lot of points in Dead Cells that there's a lot of like background design stuff in Dead Cells that does that. And so why I'm bringing that up is that is basically a game designer approach for creating the same kind of a feeling of the flow to the gameplay as like the intuition involved with like skateboarding or something. So it creates kind of like a flowy feel to the gameplay where things feel much more intuitive and like they're connecting with what you're trying to do.
I also feel like the game, its approach to like the way that the combat is also, I think, cares very much about like the style and the impact, because there's like I don't think there's any game that more satisfyingly like I guess great in terms of action and making stuff feel like with like real weight to it, I guess.
Yeah, and like when you're chaining together moves in the game, and like when you start getting into the flow, if you play like any game that you play, over time you start to develop muscle memory for the way like a skater would or something. But like games like Dead Cells are designed to be much more to give you to like play into that feel, so that like people who get really good at the game, they get into kind of a flow state, and the game's background game design on like how that works and flows together plays into that really nicely. So like even when you're pretty early on in playing the game, it starts to feel like it has a good flow to it, as if you're like kind of a skater. And so there's kind of like a feeling of moving through like a skate park on a skateboard in a weird way, of like flowing and crashing and stuff. Like anyone who's played the game knows what I'm talking about, how it feels to control the character, like the flowing and the crashing of the hard and the soft, where you're like kind of floating and jumping, and then you like do a stomp down, and then you chain it together with another move, and you try to like stack damage really quickly on like a group of enemies before they can fight back. You dodge out of the way and so on, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a really cool game. Again, I feel like sometimes I get way too invested in some roguelikes, so it's like fuck.
Yeah. On that other note, there's a lot of games that are quite popular that actually are that you do have to be pixel perfect on. Like, in those cases, like the or frame perfect and stuff that doesn't cheat stuff for the players. In those cases, the esports player or game player has to develop that kind of intuition around those limitations. So it becomes kind of a skateboardy kind of thing in another way. Skateboarding flow state.
The case with Shadow of the Colossus, where I think the enemy is more of the controls than really the thing you're fighting sometimes.
Yeah. There are some cheaty background systems that happen in Shadow of the Colossus, though. I do know about that. But I know what you're talking about. I think
it is also partly it's an old game that gets remastered. So you're only going to get so much out of that.
There was a lot of stuff in that game that was very innovative for the time, too. Like, especially the climbing system. Breath of the Wild has its own kind of evolution of that idea. But yeah. Cool. We'll be wrapping it up pretty soon. We're going to be meeting again tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. We'll probably meet even before then. Tomorrow before then. So we can get warmed up. But tomorrow we're going to be doing some more. I'm going to be doing critique of people's homework from last week. We're going to be doing some more of this, but also steering it in the direction of coming up with a story or something. Like, I think what we did tonight, where I left it right here. Hang on 1 second. Where I left it here is a good place to pick it up tomorrow. And we can literally use this image here. I'm gonna make sure that this image gets saved. So we have it handy as a reference image. So we're going to be creating a story tomorrow using this guy. Maybe using some other reference images of skaters and stuff to create some kind of like a story or action. So I'm going to save this. Skater ref. So we'll just roll with this. Like, we're just playing with this intuitively now. Like, build on what would be fun to keep building on the momentum of what we're doing. So that's where I'm feeling instinctively we should head tomorrow. We'll be continuing with the feedback that I did, and we'll be using reference of this guy. And also, you don't have to use this guy. If you have another image in mind, or another idea in mind of something that you can play with, you can start maybe sketching and doodling some pose sheets for yourself. Some rough, loose pose sheets like this tonight of the character, of the idea, and you can be kind of a little bit warmed up or juiced for tomorrow. But you'll all get a chance to kind of draw this guy and other skaters and stuff tomorrow too. We'll have a lot of fun inventing ideas and analyzing action, coming up with compositional panels, and creating a little thumbnail story, maybe developing some story panels, and basically like planning out what would potentially be like a cool little bit of animation involving like this, like a skater doing a trick or something. It doesn't have to be anything hugely fancy. It could be like a skater doing some cool tricks with a cool setup to it. We'll play it by ear and just kind of see what happens. But I'll be able to go over a lot of like principles of storyboarding stuff, and you guys are going to be welcome to experiment and get some more additional figure drawing in tomorrow too. Should be really fun. So yeah. I'm actually going to screenshot this too, so I can upload this to chat, so you guys can look at this and remind yourselves what we're going to be doing tomorrow. This might wind up turning into a week-long project, 'cause this is really fun, and I think like this would be something really good to me for me getting started on the right foot. For the class that I'm going to be taking in like a week, like 2 weeks, I think. For sure. So I hope you guys enjoyed the class. I got a big blast out of doing this tonight. This was really fun. And I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow, and also throughout the next week or the other days that we'll do stuff. So don't leave. I'm going to shut down the stream, but I'm going to put on. We're going to put on something fun to watch afterwards. We'll figure out what that is. But I'm going to congratulate everyone who stuck around to the end of this. For anyone who's in the Twitch who wants to hang out after the stream, here's the Discord. I'll put that in Twitch chat. So I'm just going to congratulate everyone on a good drawing session. This was a very good session. I got a lot out of it, and I hope you guys did too. I'm going to congratulate you for sticking around to the end.
Congratulations! 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 Thank you all.